Hi everyone, my name is Phil Valentine. I've been in recovery since 1987, going on a few years here. Um, Now I'm 6 months plus removed from my role at the Connecticut Community for Addiction Recovery as executive director. Still pursuing recovery coaching in all different sorts of ways. And enjoying, for the most part, enjoying retired lives. So I'm sitting in Warwick, Rhode Island, um, and I would like you to start us off, your name, where you're sitting, and something you have written. Who'd like to go first? Something you have written. Hi, Michelle.
Morning, everybody. Um, Michelle Harder here. Right now, I am sitting in my office at FRE Recovery Community Center in lovely Bridgeport, Rhode Island, Connecticut.
Bridgeport,
Where
Rhode
am?
Island.
Yeah, Connecticut. I'm in Connecticut today. Maybe by Friday I'll be back in Rhode Island. Something I have written was a thesis back in college about the mind of Charles Manson, and I still have it tucked away somewhere. I need to pull it out and read it. Yeah, and that's when my journey of loving serial killers came to bloom. I'm yeah, I don't know what that says about me, and neither does my therapist, so we don't talk about it.
Okay. I didn't think it was going to go there, but I do appreciate that.
I'm full of surprises that you don't
No,
know.
that just when you ask an open-ended question, that's what you get. You get a
You
lot of
got it.
surprises. So, for those of you who have just joined, we're talking about our name, where you're sitting, and something you have written. And Michelle just said she like wrote a paper on the mind of Charles Manson, and she loves serial killers, but we'll just let it go at that, right? Ed, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Ed Havlovic, sitting here in Weehawken, New Jersey, just across the river from Manhattan. Something I've written. I think one of the first things that I've written was I come from a large family, so it was my family genealogy, and it turned into about 148 pages.
Whoa. My dad embarked on a similar journey and in his retirement. He looked at the genealogy. I have that. So he did that work for us.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Kelly, New London.
Hello, my name is Kelly. I am the volunteer manager from Wyndham Recovery Community Center. I am here in New London today supporting the center here. And something that I have written, which really means a lot to me, um, it says it's called Rekindling the Fire. It's very short. It says, I would like to rekindle the fire that smolders inside of me. Incarceration and relapsing has all but snuffed it out. By carefully adding fuel, my flames will dance again. And then the second part of it that I wrote like a year later, it says, each day I tend the fire, feeding myself with determination to keep moving forward, adding focus to filter out all the worldly distractions while keeping my eye on the prize with continued hope for new beginnings filled with an abundance of opportunity. And I use that to remind me of where I came and where I'm going in the future.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So that's like a life creed almost, right? For you right now, would you
You,
say? Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anybody else? Where you're sitting? Scott, how are you?
Good morning, team. Um, I am sitting at the Bridge Club of Greater Lowell in Lowell, Massachusetts, and I was thinking something I had written. I haven't really written any. I was thinking of a novel or something like that. But for my own personal recovery, I've written a footstep.
Ah, okay, that works. Thank you. Anybody else? Sarah, good to see you.
Hello, good to be seen. I am sitting in Warren County, New Jersey, and I was on a retreat this weekend, and they did a soul art exercise. So you did these images, and then you just kind of did some pre-writing, and then you wrote down some strengths, and then you titled your piece. So I wrote appetite for adventure, seeing beauty and nature in the world. I am alive and hopeful at this retreat. And I titled it, Hey Girl, Let's Go.
So that's what you titled it, but I like appetite for adventure. That resonates with me.
Thank
And
you.
yes, Sarah, I did get your email and I just haven't started writing that piece yet. But when I do, you're
Oh,
definitely on the list. So I
thank you,
appreciate
Phil.
that.
That'd be awesome. I
Yeah, I'm
appreciate
sorry I didn't
it.
get back to you.
No, that's okay. That's all right.
Jeffrey, how are you?
Hey Phil, how you doing?
Good.
So coming from the DMV area, Maryland, Frederick County, Maryland, here at the Frederick County Health Department and in my office. So um, didn't write any novels or books or anything, but I was in grad school about in 2017, and I did write a paper about how telehealth will be the future. And this is 3 years before COVID. So
Oh,
it's good to see that telehealth is being utilized and normalized today, and it came to fruition. So I kind of pat myself on the back. I was a little bit ahead of the game with as far as the technology, how it's going to
yeah.
help us with our telemedicine, telehealth, things like that. So
Are your colleagues calling you the prophet?
absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Oh, okay. Mickey,
Good morning.
how are
Uh,
you, dude?
I am good. My name is Mickey Wiles, and I'm in Burlington, Vermont. Um, so, something that I wrote a couple of years ago was a letter. So it was I was going 20 years ahead in my life and writing a letter to myself as 20 years younger and telling myself what I wanted to it's giving advice as to how I should operate my life over the next 20 years.
Uh-huh.
And it was an exercise in a group setting type thing, but it was really powerful, really valuable. It was to be able to think through, what do you want to be able to say about yourself 20 years from now, about what actions you've taken, how you've behaved, what decisions and choices you've made. And so I go back to that letter every once in a while. It's kind of I keep it on my desk, and it's a nice little tool to use. So that's it.
Nice. That's cool. Thank you. Where you're sitting, name where you're sitting, and something you've written. Let's do like two or three more. Be brave. Raise your hand. Natha, thank you.
Hi, I'm Nathan. I am sitting in a little village in Lincolnshire, England.
Mm.
I think so. Something I've written. Oh, I've written a lot of unposted social media posts and articles.
That's could be wise.
Yeah, I've written a large selection of curated LinkedIn and social media articles that are yet to
Mhm.
be published.
Okay, that works. Thank you. Hello, Sandy.
Howdy.
I feel a little bad because I have to bounce at 10:30, so I was waiting for other folks to speak up. But I'm Sandy Valentine, sitting in Providence, Rhode Island, and I do write the occasional blog post. I kind of spew it out when it rents space in my head for a little while. If anybody's really interested, which it's totally okay if you're not, but sandyvalentine.com is kind of where I store them because I do talk about God. So, in the context of my role as an executive director, I don't share them through my organization, but y'all are welcome to meet me there.
Hey, did you mention God in your most recent American Airlines post?
No, he had no role, although I'm alive, right? So maybe he was behind my 48-hour trip, not by car, from Lexington to Providence.
Jeez. Thank you. Anybody else? Where you're sitting, your name, where you're sitting, and something you have written. Come on, Barry. I want you to say hi anyway. I love to. I just like your voice like works for me.
Oh man. So I was listening to the guy that said he wrote a full stop. I'm Barry. I'm in Hartford, Connecticut. Barry, recovery coach manager for Seacoast Emergency Department. Um, Most recently, I write an inventory quite regularly, just
Huh.
how I behave, what I do, and what I didn't do, that I'm supposed to do, and all that stuff. So it's pretty much what I write now.
Thank you, Barry. Appreciate that. Hi, Mustafa.
Morning, Phil. My name is Mustafa. I'm sitting in Providence. As you know, I've now since been started writing poetry, spiritual poetry, actually, not regular poetry, spiritual poetry, things about God. So that's what I like to do now.
I need
That's
to see
cool.
that, Mustafa. I'm down the hall, Mustafa, just so you know.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Amber, can I pick on you? You can say no.
You sure can. Yeah. Hi, I'm Amber. I am sitting in Appleton, Wisconsin. Um, so something I just wrote was actually a final paper for my class that I was in. And it was on culture. So I went to my sweat lodge and then I had to explain the experience and then also put in some information on Native Americans and indigenous culture. So it ended up being like 16 pages and I was dreading it and waited to the last minute, but I got it done and happy that it's done. So
Wow. What was one takeaway from the experience?
that those ceremonies have so much involved that I had no idea, and everything has a meaning. So every single item that's used, every single thing that they do, it has an explanation. So I thought that it was very meaningful purpose, and it was difficult too. It's very difficult, and I wasn't expecting that, but
Mhm.
I made it through, and it was a very cool experience.
Thank you. Uh, Shireen, good morning. I'm not going to let you slide either.
Come back.
Wake up, Shireen.
Come back.
No, you're hitting the mute button, not the camera button. Well, we could hear you if you wanted to talk now.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. I guess my breakfast was too big this morning. I'm sure I'm sitting in C-Car in New Haven, Connecticut, getting ready to enjoy this webinar. The last thing that I wrote, to be honest, was notes.
Oh, all right.
Notes because I had a meeting at one of the halfway houses with one of the directors, two of the directors, and how they wanted to ally with C-Car. That's something to get back with my boss. But my thing is, he's seeing what I did with some of his guys, and he wants me to do it for all his guys. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Thank you, Shireen. Hey, Regina, you unmuted, so I'm going to call on you. I
Thank
miss
you,
seeing you,
Phil.
girl. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Good morning, everyone. Make sure my mic is working. The last thing that I was working on that I wrote was facilitating a group, and it would be called the Wings of Wisdom. So putting that together, the concept of facilitation from NAMI, Chrysalis, and CCAR, and combining it together to create this curriculum for
Oh,
it.
very
It's
cool.
basically like we're Wings of Wisdom. It's basically like getting your feelings out, and just writing them down and having that concept. Just combining all three facilitation methods into one. So that's what I'm really working on right now. And I'm Regina McGarra, and I'm sitting here at CCAR in Hartford. Nice to meet everyone today.
Thanks, Regina. And one more, and Mindy knows it's going to be her.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mindy Richardson. I'm the regional manager for the western part of the state for CCAR, Emergency Department Recovery Coach Program. I am now sitting here currently at New Haven Recovery Community Center. I think the last thing that I wrote in my weekly report on how great this workshop that I'm doing in the centers are going with
Mhm.
coaches, strengthening coaches. So going into the centers and really strengthening the volunteer recovery coaches that are here and
Mhm.
like just, passing on some information to them, resources to them that is very helpful for them to be able to support and serve and provide resources to people that are coming into our centers. And then I got a whole lot of performance appraisals that I have to do now. So I'm doing a lot of writing.
That's funny. It's funny how questions morph because I didn't ask people to like say the last thing they wrote. I just said something you wrote, and we all went to like the last thing. Hey, Michael, you're going to be the last one because I want to hear what you have to say about this.
I write a lot of rhymes and I've been writing a lot lately.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's what I've been doing, just writing flows. And I just wrote something for my nephew earlier this week, and he wanted to pay me for it, and I was like, no, no, just take it. It was little 16 bars, but I wrote a song for recovery coaching that I would love to hit the studio. And this is throwing this out there. If anybody knows of anybody close by in Connecticut or in Connecticut with a studio, music studio, please reach out to me because we need to put this out there.
So you've said it a few times. You're going to give us a verse?
I want
Yeah,
to hear it.
listen. Oh, okay. So it goes like this. I used to drink, sniff, and take tokes, but nowadays I live life in a different approach. I'm helping others help themselves as a recovery coach, and I do it with no bluff. I actively listen, ask good questions, discover and manage my own stuff. And what I have is good enough, told to me by two men of alliance. They taught me the science. I played my part to develop an art. I took my trainings with Cart, continued with Wooders webinars to sharpen up my saw, dagger, all my darts. I line it up, spruce my art. In this time of war, attack addiction, rip it apart till it's no more. Alone I can't, together we can. Let's help each other with recovery capital plans. Get some resources at hand so we can help. Thank you. I just need a studio.
That's a new one, dude.
Nah, it's the same one, but I've just been tweaking it.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. Well, we all have skills, right? We all have talents. We all have our own arts. So I asked you about what you write, so you get the idea of writing. But how do you define, and the title of this webinar was author. How do you define author? How do you define it? What does that mean to you? Being an author, what does that mean? Somebody just throw something out there. It's okay.
A
No
creator.
right or wrong answer.
Creator.
Creative,
No, a creator.
creator. Gotcha. Anybody else?
Sharing your truth.
Sharing your truth. Okay.
A leader of my own fantasy.
Okay. An author. What does it define author?
So you got to be careful with that word author because at first I thought it was arthritis.
Well, that's creeping in more and more too. I know what that is. I don't like it.
Me either.
Author. What is it to be an author?
I would say an originator, to be
An
original,
originator.
an originator and authentic person.
Oh, gotcha. I like that.
A reflector of life from one's perspective.
A reflector of life from one's perspective. Scott,
A reporter.
a reporter. Hmm. I like that. Thank you. What's it mean to be an author? What's the difference between, in your minds, uh, the word author and the word writer? Because I asked you if you had written what you had written lately or something you had written. What's the difference between being a writer and being an author? Is there any? Yeah. Sarah and then Neetha?
Yeah, I was someone else said creator and someone else I think said originator. I was thinking like I was thinking of the author of my own story, right? So I might be writing about somebody else, but I'm authoring my own work. I think that's what was coming to me.
Nice. Neetha, and then we'll go to Mickey.
When you asked that question, I instantly went to I might write things that I don't share with other people. So to me, that's writing, but author is where other people read that writing.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. All right.
Yeah,
Mickey.
yeah, I was on the same track where an author has an implication of publish, but it could be published formally or informally. You're writing for somebody to share as opposed to uh, just writing something for your own benefit. If I take notes in my notebook, I'm writing. If I'm writing something that I want to share, either and share with others, then that's more of being an author.
Okay. I'm good with that. I hadn't even considered that, but that's brilliant. Thank you. You too. Michael.
I was thinking about like influence, right? So you could write something and then write it down and it won't be anything, right? You wrote something in your book and then you close the book and that's it. But I think an author is like trying to write something to either make a point or to influence, right?
Are you an author?
Oh yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you claimed that quickly. Thank you. Neetha.
I also think it's about when I think of author, I think of edited, that it's been edited. Whereas when I think of writing, I think of kind of like that just if I was if it was going to be published and other people read it, it'll probably edit it. I think it'll be more authentic and personal if it's just writing, a writer. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you. Uh, Amber.
Yeah, I think going off of what Michael said with influence, I think that being an author, there's like a purpose to it. Like you have, I mean, I think there's more thought that goes into it, at least for me.
Yeah, I'm taking notes too. Thank you. Mustafa.
Yeah, I think of a writer as a rough draft. Where you're just writing and it's rough and you just got it sitting there. An author, I take it as the finishing of that rough draft. We
Hmm.
can put it out there and you now you know it's finished. This is what I thought when I was writing, and an author is the finishment of that rough draft.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I wonder if Hemingway thought of himself as a writer or an author. I think they called themselves writers in the day. Interesting, but I don't know. Um, yeah. Um, So I like these responses. Got me thinking already. But what does Ed, go ahead. Give
I'm
me more.
sorry. Yeah, when you said writer and author, I'm
Yeah.
also thinking of what's the difference between a professional and an amateur? And for me, a professional, an author is someone who does it for a purpose or a directive, whereas a writer simply is writing because of the pure love of doing and writing,
Do
which is
you? Okay.
kind of like a professional and an amateur. A professional does it as a hobby, as a living. It's a profession, whereas an amateur just does it for the pure love and enjoyment of doing it.
Hmm. Um,
Just going to throw that one out there.
yeah, no. Which one is there in terms of quality, do you think one is above the other?
Neither. They both serve their purpose, so they're not the same thing for comparison. They're different.
Okay, gotcha. What does the word author have to do with recovery coaching? And why would I bring it up?
Hmm.
I would think you would bring that up because they're the author of their own story.
Yeah. Okay. Sandy?
So I think a lot of the folks that we work with have just been kind of pushed around by whatever systems they've become involved with. And they've lost that ability to see that they can author their own recovery, they can author their own life, um, they can change their relationships, they can write them differently. Um, so that's what it made me think of.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Let you think about it for a little bit.
There's some
Author,
there's
recovery
some things in
coaching.
the chat too, Phil.
Yeah, empowering participants to choose their own life story. Hmm.
I also think as a recovery coach, we assist them in finding their writing tools on how they are going to write their stories. And some of them might be using ink, pencil, who knows? Everyone writes their stories differently.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, Brene Brown talks a lot about the story we tell ourselves, and Sarah touched on that early, and others have since. And so the story we tell ourselves is the story we write to, and it's also the story we author, right? So you're spot on with how I'm thinking about this. I think one other uh, aspect of authorship, if that's a word, is um, the intention behind it. And someone said the purpose behind it. I think it might have been Amber. But there's an intention and then there's an attitude. And so I want you to discuss in your personal life, maybe right now or in past phases of your life, who is authoring your life right now? Michelle, you're laughing. How come? Why? Who is the author of your life?
Not me. That's what,
And why do you say that?
because I am engaging in things that I don't really want to. So, um, I feel like outside forces are authoring my life.
So what would be one of those outside forces?
My husband.
Oh, your husband is the author of who else? What else?
Um, my people pleasing is authoring my life.
So that's
Um,
you.
that's me. Yeah. But it is me, but it's a characteristic of me that I don't really love. So I've spent a lot of years in therapy trying to get rid of it, and it just keeps hanging on. But yeah, I don't feel like I am the author of my life for so many different reasons. Um, want to make sure that I want to say this the right way. Um, I want to make sure that the rest of my life, which is what, like, a quarter more of the years I've lived, right? Probably. Um, I want to be able to do, think, say, um, what I want to do and not what everybody else wants me to do. Yeah. So I feel like everybody else is
Well,
authoring for me.
and then so a recovery coach might ask you, what is your next step to make that happen? And now you don't have to answer that, but that would be, what do you need to do next?
Thank you, Mr. Phil. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Mustafa.
Yeah, for, for me, and it's just God. I try to do everything not to displease him. He's the author and finisher of everything for me. Because I know without him, I wouldn't be sitting here without the strength that he gives me every day to wake up, to do what I have to do every day, to do the right thing.
Okay, so you're saying that God is the author of your life.
Absolutely.
So give me one example, a recent example of how that worked in your life.
I have a brother who's in active addiction,
Hmm.
and I want to do everything for him. But if I do, I'm supporting him doing what he's doing. He came and asked me for something. And for the first time, I said no.
Hmm.
For me, that's hard because I don't want to see him struggle. I don't want to see him hurt, but I'm not going to support what you're doing either. And as a man of God, I can't support your bad habits.
Okay, so I would say that's you authoring that example. You had the courage to do that. Just a different perspective, but I
Hmm.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Hmm.
Mickey.
Yeah, I would say that I am the author, and I would say that because, I'm the one who is going to take in the inputs from all these different sources. It may be a higher power, it may be others, it may be getting advice and suggestions. But at the end of the day, I take responsibility for my own story and author it. And using it in the context of comparing it to an author, sticking with that. If I was
Hmm.
going to write a book on World War II, I couldn't just sit down and write a book on World War II. I'd have to go out and find sources and information and go gather that and get inputs. But at the end of the day, the writing would be my writing. I'd be the author. Um, but I would be relying on others to help me get there. So I see myself as the author in my own life.
Like it. Thank you. Mindy.
Mickey took the words out of my mouth. I'm responsible for my own journey, in the past and coming into the future where I'm making the change and showing growth and things like that. It's me and who I put um include in that is like, if I believe in a higher power, which I do. And I just ask him to help guide me. But I'm the one to make the decisions. So coming from where I was to where I'm at today, I did that. and so I'm continually writing to be a better person, right, every day. So
Thank you. Who is the author of your life right now? Sarah.
I was thinking about how much I had been really looking at the news over the last few weeks for a variety of reasons. Some of it was to like track funding, and so what would be happening with my job or my work or my. And about a week ago, I really reduced it. So I have to pay attention to some of it because I want to be a good citizen, but also for my work, I do have to follow some of it. But it started to feel like, um, when you're swimming in the water and like you can handle the wave level, and then you're swimming in the water and you realize you cannot handle the wave level, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of making that switch because then I don't, and maybe I'm, inserting author for control or higher power, or whatever here, but yeah, so making that change and then really, trying to focus on what I wanted to do to spend my time with, which is what drove me to go to the retreat this past weekend. And I left my phone on airplane mode in my room as much as I was able to. It really kind of restored me to that centering, so yeah, hopefully more me.
Yeah, a few, I would have to say, probably a couple months ago, the one that was, especially after the election, the Facebook platform, I mean, I've been on it since 2008. So I just removed the icon from my phone surface and my thing. So in order for me to access it, I have to go through a few steps, right? Not just stick a button. And I found that drastic reduction in one social media platform, I was like, uh, transparency. In a lot of ways, social media can author your life. And I don't like that. I don't want freaking social media authoring my life. I mean, so I had to really take a look at that and how much time I'm on it and find other things that I enjoy more that fit into my story. So I can relate a lot with you, Sarah. Thank you for sharing that. It can be news, it can be social media, it can be, and I listen to a podcast on long drives, Joe Rogan, but he talks more like he doesn't, he realized how much like um, the, replying to comments and arguing, it doesn't get anywhere, and people are just yelling at each other. It's the nature of the platform, all platforms. And so he's given it up basically because it wasn't helpful. And when I started to look at it through that lens, it doesn't really have anything to do with me personally, social media or how I choose to look out my window today. It has a lot to do with affecting my attitude and my um, well-being. So I'm withdrawing more and more and more from that. So thank you. That's my little rant. Shireen.
Bill, and that's I'm trying to be an author now, but choosing the right narrations with my life.
Yeah.
Like from where I was to where I'm going to where I am now and to where I'm going, and I'm just trying to do better, better this time, whether it's be speaking, walking, talking, just narrating everything good. My higher power now controls and leads me which direction to go. So I'm pretty much sitting still and listening and following directions instead of me left up to my own devices. So my book is going to be very stunning.
I'm sure it will be.
One day I'll be able to put it down on paper to release because my story might can help somebody else because a lot of them don't know, but I've been on a cancer trip since 2018. and it's a lot within there. And I learned a lot. I grew a lot. So that's even in my book, authoring, because there's people out there that have sickness and don't want to go on, to let you know you can go on. You can motivate yourself. You can be powerful. Don't stop there. Let's keep going. So I like the subject today. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Shireen. Jeffrey,
All right, so approach this from a different kind of lens here. So,
please.
yes, I am the author of my life, and but as authors do, they have editors that you have to pass your work through. So
Yeah.
I do have a co-author slash editor, which is my significant other wife, and
Mhm.
you have to. All authors have to go through that editing process, make sure things are aligned and you're following protocol and procedures. So that's my take.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. Anybody else? How are you thinking about this? Ed, did you share about it yet?
I, I believe, like everyone else, that I also am the author of my life. I just sometimes find it a little challenging because it seems I'm never working on one piece. I might be working simultaneously on several things that I'm writing. And I think, like life, which throws curves left and right, I'm finding myself going back to things that I started and seeing it differently shortly. And it affects how I continue writing that piece. Um, so I write, but I think more importantly, my editor is my higher power. And I think I do a self editing constantly as I write to make sure that the editing is more acceptable. And when I do, I find my writing and the stories that I write of myself more acceptable.
Hmm, fascinating. Yeah. Um, Anybody ever here have anything published, like written or published? Just raise your hand. Like I self-published a book on my Appalachian Trail adventure, and you know, it's amazing how much procrastination played a part in writing that book. And there was really no um, you just got to sit down and do it. You just got to kind of break the barrier. And there's a concept I've also heard about recently that I've been using as I'm trying to create some type of art here. It's called summoning the muse. Anybody's heard of that? Like you summon a muse is someone that can be very inspirational, and it's your artistic creative self. And people have also often looked at it as like if you summon the muse and start, the muse will take over. Anybody had that experience? Like you just like start writing, and the next thing you know, like Amber said, she wrote a 16-page paper about her experience, but you procrastinated too, right? But you got it done. But there's a time where it's like the flow just comes out when you're summoning the muse. Um, that being said, I think there's part of us when, uh, well, let me ask another question. I'll go there later. Describe a time in your life when you weren't the author and what that was like. Amber.
Yeah, so I was kind of listening to everyone talk and like it brought me back to probably around like the high school years that I had. And for some reason, I feel like I've had this inside of me where there was always this should, like I should be doing this, like almost like my path was already
Yeah.
created for me, even though nobody really told me that I had to be doing certain things. It was just inside of me. And I don't really know where that came from. Of course, there's like influence of like, oh, go to college and do this. But unfortunately, like I was able to do all that, but I wasn't mentally present, right? So like that was a big thing for me where then, once I started getting into active addiction and everything, then I no longer had control, right? So whether it was the substances or the legal trouble I was in, then that ability and opportunity to even be the author was gone, right? Because I was just going through the motions again. However, this time around, I'm like, I still have that inside of me of like I don't know why I have this feeling of I have to do things a certain way because that shouldn't be how it is, you know? So like I find myself like others were sharing is questioning like what is the purpose of this, right? Like if I make this decision, then what's it going to look like? Or like are there other options? And like it's uncomfortable because I have this fear of like making the wrong decision or like this finality, like that I made the wrong move, but I think it's a learning process because, I had a really, really good job before I got into this line of work financially, right? But I looked at the future a few years down the road and I'm like, I can't see myself being happy doing this, right? So, like, that's what I'm saying is like, I find myself questioning, like, okay, is this something I really have to be doing? Probably not, but it's just my mind is trained that way. So when I'm working with my peers too, like that's something I let them know as I say, well, what do you want to do? Like what do you want to do? Because they've probably never even been asked that, So
Right. Great question. Yeah, thank you. Mickey.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because my first inclination was that the 2 years I spent in federal prison, I wasn't my own author. Uh,
Wow.
although it was the way I was authoring my life before that landed me there.
Eh,
Um, and then even that, I was a cook in the kitchen for 2 years, um, which was a really hard job. It was four of us cooking for 1,200 inmates, uh, and it was, um, I had no say or choice or anything in terms of how it was done or what we were doing. There was no room for any of that. It had to be specifically. So I definitely wasn't authoring that process, but I still had just choices to make. I still was able to control certain part of my, things of my life. I could have just like said F you and ended up in the hole, or I could have made the decision to do what I need to do to make my life uh, reasonably passable for those 2 years. So, it's almost like I'm always there's always a part of me that even though when there's outside forces that are dictating what I'm doing, there are still areas that I can continue to be the author of my own story.
Yeah, thank you, Mickey. Great example. Barry.
So, I think I'm gonna combine the two questions because my perspective was a little different. I
Sure.
think for me, I think life is the author and I'm just the character, right? And I think that I get a choice on what role I want to play. There was a time when in active addiction, I really had lost my choice on what role I wanted to play in my life. But I think life is the author. Life dictates, how I respond and what I do. I don't think I'm the author, but my response. I can choose the character. I can be a positive character. I can be a negative character. I can be a victim. I could choose any role that I want to play. But I don't think I'm the author because life changes without my permission. So I think life is the author. So thanks.
All right, you got me quiet with that one. I'm not quite sure what to think about that. Holy crap. Life is the author. Well, I'll take that. Somebody else jump in here. Ed.
I, for the longest time, I didn't know that I could be an author of my life. And sometimes when you're not the author of your life, you find yourself being the author and writing someone else's life or helping them write their life.
No.
I, I came into this awareness a long time ago when I came into recovery. For the longest part, growing up with 10 older brothers, I had my life being replicated. So everyone assumed who I was based on my older brothers. And so you just follow that same tradition, so to speak. They were all good in sports. They were smart, math. I was not. And so I just tried to write my life according to what I saw in others.
Thank you, Ed.
Becoming into recovery, I became aware that I can author my life.
Yeah,
And that was significant for me.
thank you.
And the results are much more appealing than trying to live someone else's life or to write someone else's story.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. Nathan.
Um, I think I'm sitting a bit more in the Barry camp. I
Sure.
kind of thought of the question as, you know, my story life, it's like not a book. It's sort of like a journey and it's like a map. And I'm just going along and things happen on that journey. And sometimes it says recalculating, recalculating. And during really hectic, busy times, it flipping is going mental, just saying recalculating, recalculating, and I don't know which direction to follow. I kind of go settle, pick a direction. But yes, I'm the author, but I'm the author in the sense of sometimes I'm responding to environmental, spiritual, situational, stuff that is going around. So, yeah. And like the first time that came to mind when I felt like I didn't have control, wasn't the author of a moment in time. I was caught exiting the tube station during the 7/7 bombings in London. And I just remember having no control, just standing on that stairwell packed with people, and you couldn't move. We were waiting for people to navigate us out of there. But that was the instant moment when you said a time you were not authoring it. I just was like standing on that stairwell, didn't know what was going to happen.
Wow. Thank you, Nathan. Mindy.
Hey, so I feel that when I wasn't the author of my life, I had sat in the passenger side and allowed um my addiction to drive or like someone else to drive, an external force to drive. Like it's through like hardship, my addiction, like uncertainties in life, like I was not able to write. I allowed other people, even like when I didn't have a voice, like I didn't know that I can advocate for myself. You know what I mean? And again, like someone said about the people pleasing, right? But like, how about like, being married to someone that's very abusive and not having a voice, not being able to uh even say like I want an orange soda today instead of a Pepsi. Like I had no voice. So it all went like the internal, like self-worth, self-esteem, things like that were broken where I didn't have the strength to be able to have it, to be my own author.
Hmm.
So I got.
Thanks. Well, I've told you guys many times that when I do this, I teach or facilitate best what I most need to learn. That's that's like an author, Art Woodard saying. He said that over and over and over again. We teach best what we most need to learn. I think he got it from Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Richard Bach, or something like that. Anyway, um, so I'm thinking about all of this, and in some of my notes as I was preparing, I thought about small kids, like children. Do they author their lives? Do they have any say? When does that end? When do they take control? When do parents hand over the pen, if you will, or the crayon, or the pen, and they start authoring their own lives? Um, I'm still wrestling with what Barry said too about life is the author, right? And when I'm trying to think about the word control came to me. Does life control us or do we control our life? Barry, what do you think about that? You sat up.
Well, I think life definitely controls us.
Do you?
We control how we respond to it, but I mean, because I can't dictate life. I don't know what's gonna happen. I can only dictate how I respond to it. And it's been good and it's been bad at times. So I think life definitely controls us.
Yeah, but you could also say, I'm gonna take a trip to uh the islands
Mhm.
in April. Aren't you controlling that? Life's not controlling you.
Well, what if in April the island, I mean, there's a storm or I can't
Oh,
go?
what if there's not?
Well, what if there is? That's what I said. I have no control.
Okay.
I can make a plan.
Yeah, make a plan. I like that. Sarah.
I so I'll preface this by saying I don't know how to sail, but but the sailboat for me metaphor is always that's always worked for me. And so like I reflect on times where, the sails were full out, so I'm catching all the wind. I've got my hands on the whatchamacallit, but I don't realize the rudder underneath is missing. Right. So that's like when I was in active use, right? Like I'm just like blowing wherever life is taking me to respond to like what Barry was saying. Like, and ultimately, hopefully I got the rudder back and I've learned a little bit more about sailing in terms of like moving through life. But I hear what Barry's saying. Like, I can't control the seas, I can't control the wind, I can't control the sun. For me, that's what the life part, but I can try to do all those other things. I can learn how to sail better. I can have a good crew. I can, do all those different things. I can put on sunscreen, so sometimes I can make the most out of that good wind. And if the weather's going to be really bad, I don't take the boat out. That's the other thing.
Hmm.
So I know we've gone down water-based metaphors before, but
No, I know.
but that's one that's been with me for a bit that I do really strongly identify.
Well, the water-based metaphor for me is I was drifting for much of my life, even into recovery. I don't maybe I've been drifting kind of my whole life. I'm not really sure that I've ever really taken the rudder and controlled it, you know. There's some things like I decided, God called me to walk the Appalachian Trail, and I go, well, okay, that sounds like a good idea. Yeah, I'll give it a go, but it wasn't like, I don't know what that is exactly. So you have me thinking about that a lot. And can I be more intentional about my life today, and now that I'm retired and I have enough financial security that I'm pretty free to choose. So I can sail in any direction I want to now. Or am I just going to continue to drift?
Well, and I really identify because I think that there's good drifting, right? And then there's the other kind of drifting where you dash yourself on the rock. But also I think for me, especially at this point in my career and in my recovery and in my life, I just turned 50 last month, like that fear around um an unidentified or previously unacknowledged fear of saying like I do get to choose and I'm afraid of maybe what I might encounter when I choose. So yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I haven't been afraid of making a decision. I think that made me an effective leader, that I would make a decision based on the best decision based on the information I had at the time and just go with it, So I don't know that that was kind of like what even when like I think I might have even intentionally decided to drift. Oh, well, the C car job came across well, let's give that a go. And I think I'm a lot like my dad because he would just, at the end of his life, I said, how did you? He goes, I just got lucky. And maybe that's what Barry's talking about. Sometimes life just leads you to just get lucky, and sometimes people don't get lucky or for whatever reason, or we don't perceive it as lucky. So we're talking about authorship, and I think when we talk about authoring your life, writing your story, we're like, I do think it is about control, right? Do we have control? What level of control do we have over our own lives? So again, how does this go into how you think, tie into how you think about recovery coaching, not only for you personally, but how you might work with a recovery when it talks about um, choice, control, and being the author of your journey. How does this tie in? Any new thoughts? What are you thinking? Tina, hi, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm fine, Phil. Just hanging in there, just running, just running. Just wanted to just to say, your decisions determine your destiny, and unfortunately, when we don't, it could be a danger for me in drifting, because if I'm drifting, I might miss my season. That's my way of managing. So drifting for me, unless I stumble up on something, now that's a stumble. So drifting can be good if you're stumbling up on something without having control. Sometimes you have to let go of some things, but normally on my daily management, my decisions determine my destiny. And unfortunately, if I don't make the right decision, I might miss the season for that time, and I have to come back and I get another chance, you know. So I guess I look at it sort of like that. Being prepared, even if that season was missed 10 years ago, the next time it comes around, I'll be able to make the right decision and be ready to execute. And but drifting for me can be dangerous because I have to be laser focused. The type of work that the kind of purpose that I'm called to be, I have to be on point.
Gotcha. Anybody else? What are you thinking? Michael?
I really love what Barry was saying about, and I agree with that totally, right? And it is your reaction. Because like I was saying in the thing, you could plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather. You could plan everything out how it's supposed to be and grand, and then all of a sudden it turns out to be something else. And it's like, how do you react to those things, right? You planned this so hard. Are you gonna be stuck in just madness that it didn't go out the way you wanted to, or are you just gonna be like, well, it turned out okay for me? I don't know. It's different for people.
Okay, how would you ask recoveries about this concept? What are some questions you might ask?
I would start off with, what have you read, right? Because I think we need to start reading stuff before we start writing, right? Because if we don't, I grew up with a lot of people, and my dad, because I used to be like, why are these people cursing so much? Every other word is a curse. And he used to hang out with individuals that did that. And he was like, listen, I don't ever question how people can talk, but I always notice that the vocabulary is low when you fill in the curse words, right? So and I grew up with individuals that cursed a lot, and I noticed that they didn't read, right? And I think it starts off with reading. So I would get them curious with that first, right? Ask them dumb questions, because then we can have that conversation of, what do you want to write? Right now you got all this knowledge that you've read,
All right.
and now we
Take
can
and
write,
take.
right? But you can't just hand a piece of paper and a pen to somebody and be like, hey, let's write. I think it starts off with first those steps, those baby steps. Let's read something first. What? And I would ask somebody, what's the last thing you've read, and what'd you learn from it?
Okay. Thank you. Nathan.
I think I would ask that person, do you consider yourself to be lucky or unlucky and why?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because I think when I've sort of asked people questions around that, the ones who say they might be lucky, there's a level of optimism and hope and the ability to maybe seize that moment of luck and do something with it. Versus unlucky, I think there's a level of life is happening to me. So let's explore that. That's just my
That's a great question.
two
How would you
questions.
answer it?
I think I would say that I have had times in my life that I consider myself to have been exceptionally lucky.
Yeah.
And when those situations have arose, in most opportunities, I've managed to seize that luck and put some work in to make something happen. On some occasions, I have not, and I've missed those opportunities
Hmm.
of that luck provided me. Yeah.
Thank you. Barry.
I think I would what I always ask for recovery is, what do you want? Where do you think you need to start?
Oh, and do you remember any like really weird answers that you've gotten from that question?
Uh, usually I get I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, but no,
That's
I just think that, without getting too deep, I think I would just want to ask them, where would you like to start? Where do you think you need to start at getting what you want? And I think that's the basis for the conversation.
hmm Cool. Mickey.
Yeah, to take it using this theme, I would um, like to ask somebody, we all have a story, and for your
Mm.
story, how much of your story was do you believe is attributed to life circumstances versus how much of it was attributed to your choices and decisions in your life?
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. That's a great question. Thank you. Ed.
I might ask a question like, what are the choices you've made in your life that you are unhappy with? And what are the choices that you have made in your life that you are happy with? Because I don't believe that life controls us. I think life just gives us opportunities or misfortunes, and it depends upon us how do we react to it. And yes, if I'm talking about the sailing metaphor, we don't control the winds, but we can always look and adjust our sails to react to the wind and the wind directions. We can't control if it rains or doesn't rain on our perfect picnic afternoon, but we can bring the umbrella as a backup. It's how do we react to those situations? We don't we don't control the results. We always control how we react and what action we can take. As I often remind myself that I'm not responsible for results, but I'm certainly responsible for the actions and the decisions that I make.
Yeah, thank you. Dang it. I can't get this like thing out of my head now. So you guys got me like I'm thinking of being in a life raft. Like floating in the ocean. And Dr. Tina said, no, I can't do that. Um, and but would I rather be paddling my ass off upstream or floating like in a big comfortable raft along with the current? Me, I'm a lazy sack of cow, so I would just kind of like to float around. I don't really give a shit. I don't want to work that hard to like paddle against the stream to get my ass upriver. I don't know what's up there. I'll just go where the river's going to take me and see what happens. But that's just my nature. So I don't know if that's the best thing. I'm just being honest, like who I am. And that's kind of like how I've lived life is just I thought God was in charge of the life raft. He kept dropping in fish and food and water and people to hang out with, and we all enjoyed the ride together. But I'm just still I'm being honest, I still just kind of floating along and figuring out, am I going to write about how I'm floating along? Am I authoring it? Is that okay? I guess my choice is, but do you fight against the current? Do you set your ship to have like you put a huge diesel engine on it so you can motor to this certain place across the world because that's where you want to go? I don't know. I'm still just out there floating. Amber.
I'm just thinking about so many things with everybody shares and like I think it kind of ties into what I was saying before is that I have this fear of like things going wrong, right? But I found that when I don't try and control everything, life is much better, right? And less stressful. However, when you bring stuff like luck into it, I was listening to the radio 2 days ago and the guy on there was saying that he lives his life um understanding that life is not fair. So if we sit here and we dwell on the fact that like life is not fair, it will be very miserable, right? Because it just is what it is, right? And it's how we react to it. So like I'm not the best at that because I tend to like situations happen for me, which obviously in active addiction, it seems to happen more often than negative things, right? That's just what happens. However, like even in sobriety, recovery, whatever, like there's things that happen to me that I just like, I have to laugh about now because like, I mean, even like 3 months ago, there was a bad storm here, right? And I parked in my driveway and this tree branch falls and shatters my windshield, right? And so like, I was just like, well, what the heck? Like whose fault is this? Because I don't want to pay for this. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, oh, it's an act of God. And then it's like, oh, I'm getting all negative. I'm like, well, what the heck is happening here? And so I get it fixed. And a week later, I'm driving and the car in front of me spits up a rock and cracks the windshield that I just got replaced 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, what? I was like, this cannot be happening. But it's just all about my attitude because it's like I could have sat there and felt sorry for myself, but I just kept moving forward. And I feel like if I just understand that life is not always fair, but I have the ability and opportunity to maneuver and navigate, even if it's uphill in a stream, I am capable of doing it. So that's where my mind's at.
Right. And um, so a lot of Sandy and I bought this house on a cove, and we had an open lot next to us that hadn't been built on in 70 years, and they're building this huge 3-story monstrosity. And I'm looking out the window right now and watching them work on it, and I'm like, blocked our view, blocked the morning sun. I got a choice to make about that, right? And so this morning, on the far side of the house that faces another part of the water, I'm taking an outdoor shower, hot water, outdoors. There's 4 ospreys over the cove fishing. There's a blue heron. There's several tall egrets, 2 swans, 4 Canadian geese, some mallards, and Michael, when I was telling him the story, said, "And the partridge was in the pear tree." No, but that wasn't there. But I'm sitting there going, and I can't see the house from there. Hot water, thinking, "It's beautiful, the sun's out, the birds are here, the cove is working." Um, if I was going to sit down today and write about that, right, be the author of my story, what perspective do I take? And that's a choice of the author, right? The one that's full of gratitude, awe, and wonder, or the other one that's like calling up his Puerto Rican friend over here and saying, "Hey, you know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who might be able to take this house down," like. Or is the author of my story both and or either or, it's probably both and. That's what makes it that the interesting juxtaposition of, and that happens, that's just one example, right? That happens every day about how we look at things. I mean, Barry's lived in Hartford his whole life, but he often posts a picture of him down at Charter Oak Park, next to the river, next to the beauty, next to the water, all of that. It's both and. Which one am I going to choose? And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this is this authorship, right? Of what we're going to put out into the world. And I have written a book. I've written a few blogs. Um, the other part is uh, I heard Robert Rodriguez give an interview, and he did like Machete, Dusk Till Dawn, all these. He does Spy Kids 4. He's an incredible producer of movies. Um, um, and his perspective is fascinating, um, because he talks about developing and the muse and that we have all of this in us. And I encourage you to kind of listen to that. But we want to, what he said is he didn't really start out to, produce like one book or produce one film and then that be it. He wanted to produce a body of work, right? So a body of work. So as if we're going to be authors, we write one thing, then we write another, then we write another. And in the recovery field, Bill White is the best example of all this, is his body of work of how many things he's written. And that's where his authority came from. And that's where his credibility comes from. We as coaches, we create a body of work too, right? That it's every time we interact with somebody, whether we're technically serving as a coach or just, talking to somebody where you're getting your coffee in the morning, or a contractor who comes into your house, which I've had a lot of. This is our body of work. And this is also another way to relate to your recoveries. What do they want their body of work to look like? So for me, I'm starting to create a body of work of things that I've drawn or painted or colored or whatever you want to call it. So I've got little portfolios. Here's my body of work. What happens with it? We'll see. But what this is spurring me on to do is to create a body of work for those of us that are called to write and also do that. Like I have a lot to contribute with my 25 years of experience at CCAR, I believe. I'm just trying to summon the muse to start to author these papers, these books, these blog posts. I don't know, but the only way I'm going to get there is to start, take the first step, to write. The last point to that is when in the Multiple Pathways of Recovery conference, Lisa Hope pointed out to me, she's an art therapist, that I had been drawing for my entire life. I just didn't consider that because they were doodles and paper, in notebooks and all this, or blotter papers that I had on my desk. I've been drawing my whole life. I've been writing my whole life. Many of you have, whether it's text messaging now, emails, um, whatever. But a lot of us have been writing our whole lives. We just never considered it that. So there is a body of work already there. You just might want to consider, how do we formalize that to push the recovery coach field and the recovery coach profession with what we know? How do we create a body of work? Any thoughts about what I just shared? Man, I just talked for like 4 or 5 minutes. That's like a record for me. Any thoughts about that? Please, feedback, ideas. Nothing.
I was wondering, like when there's so much experience and so many years that you have had and so many interactions, like hard to almost like I wonder if there's just so much bounty to choose from. So that's like that kind of, there's so
Mhm.
many trees you can't see. But and I realized I mean this respectfully, like I wonder if there's also like fear about beginning, but that might not be something you experience. I know that that might be something I would experience. Um,
No, you know
yeah.
what? I I don't have fear about doing it.
Hmm.
It goes to me like that I'm lazy. I'm just freaking lazy. I mean, I don't know if lazy, but I really just don't. I know how much work it is to like put it together. And right now, when I was doing the other things, there was some enjoyment around it. I don't know how much I would enjoy doing that. But that doesn't mean I couldn't or shouldn't do it, you know? So that's why I have a few people recently, and Bill White has talked to me too about writing the history of CCAR just because it was such a, we just we were in danger of losing some funding, and I heard that CCAR got the money for the centers for a couple of years. So it's all, it's continuing without me, which is what I had always hoped, right? So that first 25 years could be very helpful for somebody, but if I'm going to be completely transparent, and honest, I don't freaking want to do it. It's so much work. I'm just, and maybe that's just wrong. It's probably wrong. Amber.
I think that you have to do it because
Are you
yeah,
writing my life
you
for me?
have
Are
to
you
do
writing,
it. Yeah,
authoring
I
my
am the
life?
author of your life because I just did a second day of training, Recovery Coach Academy, and it's a condensed 3-day training, but we went over stages of recovery, and I love that section because these people, they're first like, oh, they're not familiar with it, right? And then they start personalizing it, and then they're going back and forth about, oh, well, I kind of agree with this, and I'm watching all this unfold. And then I'm like, well, how many of you guys have heard about this before? And they're like, not me. And I'm like, well, that's because it came from Phil. And I was like, that's because this is where it's all originated. And I'm like, but you agree with it, right? And so like what they're doing is they're absorbing this information, and I guarantee they're going and spreading that out there too, whether they're, sharing with people they're working with or just in their lives. So you were the author, and it's just spreading. So like you have to share your knowledge. Otherwise it just, that would have never happened. So you have to do it.
All right. Mickey.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to do it as well.
I'll
Uh,
tell all of you guys to piss off.
yeah. However, you also have to figure out how to enjoy your life at this point, at this
Uh,
stage where you are. So, is there a way that you can accomplish both? Like,
maybe,
for
probably.
example, maybe can you do it through a series of interviews with some interns who really want to, who can write it for you? Or, is there a way that you can do it um, that isn't quite as you having to take on the entire project yourself? Is a way to accomplish it that you're getting help along the way. And uh, I could, from what I know of you at this point, I would say that you'd probably do great in a series of interviews that would share the experiences of CCAR along the way and let somebody else put it down. You still have the ability to edit it later if you want.
Piss off. That means thank you. Oh, shit. Why did I even bring this up? Barry.
So do you think the story need to be told?
You can piss off too, Barry. Goodbye.
And who else could tell the story?
Well, yeah. I know Michael, Jolie, and I did that one interview, 20 years, but I do think there would be good to have a written version of the history of CCAR. I think, so that maybe this is, never mind. Uh, Fog. Natha.
Phil, you have to do it. Um,
I have to do it.
and I would say,
Everybody tells me, you can't tell an addict and alcoholic they have to do something. You know what they're going to do? You ought to be saying, whatever you do, Phil, don't write that freaking history of C-Car.
well,
Nobody.
Phil, I kind of along the lines of I think Mickey, who was telling you about getting somebody to record it.
Yeah.
I would more than happily send Curious Clace to ask you every question she could come up with and
Jeez.
record all the answers for you, and I am sure. But I also want to go a bit further. I think if you were documenting the C-Car history, there's many faces of C-Car, and you have so much wealth of information that can help many different people see a different lens, from the funding and leadership side to the recovery support side to the growing a team side to the efficacy and doing it with heart side. So there's a whole series. Yeah, I'm with you. Netflix series, Phil Valentine, and my question is, if you're saying to us as a leader, we need to be thinking about how we create a body of work. Can't you sort of follow that journey through blogs, and whatever, and show us how it's done? Thank you.
Yeah, I gotcha. Mustafa.
Yeah, I just think it would be great to hear it because I don't know nothing about it.
Well, there,
So
that's a
for
very
me, I
compelling
would
reason
love
right
to
there.
just to hear the history of it and where it all came from, how it started. But should they, everybody say you should do it, you have to do it. I just think you have to be happy with what you're doing. And
Yeah.
if it makes you happy to do it, then do it. And if it doesn't make you happy and you just want to keep moving on, as you would say, drifting, keep drifting.
Well, Mickey's challenge was actually the best way to do it. I haven't thought of it in that way, which is figure out a way to do it and make it enjoyable at the same time. So I appreciate that. Tina.
I just want to say this, Phil. I wrote my book, Show Me Some Love, of the stories of the people um, during my journey. And I got another book to write. That's the journey that connected me to CCAR and the path to recovery. So I believe that nothing just happens. And you said about the drifting. Well, when I was in my other season of life, I remember a song that said, my mind just drifts away, caught up in the oceans of thought. So after I got out of that ocean, I ran into CCAR. Do you understand? And I
Okay.
had a reset. So it's time to do it now, Phil. It's time to, because you were a part of my journey.
I gotcha.
CCAR was a part of my journey. And if you have to just get everybody like us, give a part of the story that connected us to you and to CCAR, you should do it. Get testimonies, do whatever you have to do. Because I did dead men testimonies in this book. But now we found another series of our life that I drifted into, which was CCAR by accident, that I can tell stories of giving life and not just making a living, but giving life now.
Thank you, Tina. Ed, you're muted.
Like everyone else, I would also encourage you to write it. I think the only thing worse that would happen if you didn't write it would be that someone else would write it. And it would be so unauthentic. And it would be missing the mark completely, because who better to know it than the author himself?
You know how much I dislike you right now?
No, tell me.
You're too funny. Mindy. Hello, Mindy. There you go.
Hey, you're not alone. So that's one point, and I'm pretty sure that you know that you have people that can support you and that was there with you at the beginning that can kind of support, your writing, and you have all of us as cheerleaders.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I appreciate that.
all right.
Yeah. Thank you,
But I
Mindy.
know you're gonna do it anyway, Phil. This is why you're wrestling with it, and this is why you brought it up.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey as you do it.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Michael.
I remember the first time I seen Phil, I got pissed off at Phil because I was volunteering at the center and I just finished cleaning the front yard. I was so happy with myself, and here comes this man and drives his SUV on the lawn.
Yep, a big old brown Suburban. Yep.
Yeah, and then I go to Geraldo, yo, who the hell is that? And he said, yo, that was the first time he ever mentioned el papá de la recuperación. No, it's not the potato of recovery. It's the father of recovery. And he told me who you were. And I was like, I don't care, you ain't over my lawn. But yeah, I agree. You need to write this, right? Because you have a lot of you're gonna be that main author, but you're gonna have a bunch of writers in there too, right? That they can give good testimony and add to your things, right? Because you're right. You started this revolution, right? But I know you for a fact that you're not alone. You were never alone to do this, right? You
Yeah.
have a bunch of individuals that's going to help you out through this. So it's going to be a lot easier for you to write this.
All right. Okay, it's 11:32 Eastern Standard Time. I'm not going to make any promises, but what I do in the morning is I have some time set aside. So, if you write a little each day, then it just starts to gain traction. So next month I promise there will be progress on the history of CCAR. Don't know
Awesome.
how much progress, but there will be some progress.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Love you guys very much.
We love
Appreciate
you
you.
too.
Have a wonderful day.